Games rated E to M. Welcome to Nintendo Power Podcast. This episode, we share in-depth impressions of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity and revisit The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. My name is Chris, and joining me today are two of my fellow co-workers at Nintendo of America, Chiko from Nintendo Treehouse. Hi, Chiko.
Hi.
Hello, and Joe from the social media team. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Chris. How's it going?
Great. So thanks for coming on the show, you guys. And we're going to start with a game that is coming out the same day that this episode is going to post on November 20th, which is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Now, I've just started playing this game, but you're both experts, so I'm really looking forward to talking to you about it. But before we start digging into all the details, Chico, how would you describe this game to people who may have played a more traditional Legend of Zelda game, but might not have played a Hyrule Warriors game before?
The Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is very different because it is a Warriors game instead of the traditional the Legend of Zelda series game. This one you are fighting against you're one against 1,000 or so, the horde of enemies coming at you, and then it's more action oriented game rather than exploration and puzzle solving you will see in traditional the Legend of Zelda type games.
That's right. Yeah, you're basically taking armies of classic villains from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Joe, what's your experience been like with I guess just this game in general, but then also the Legend of Zelda series? Are you a big Legend of Zelda fan? And if so, what was your impression coming into Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity?
Yeah. So for me, the Legend of Zelda as a series is one of those kind of mainstay prestige franchises for me. I've basically played every game in the series. It's very near and dear to my heart. So, for this game in particular, I think the first time that I got to see it and we really got excited for it. I was pretty blown away by a lot of the stuff that we saw. Just the close aesthetic to the Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Having more time in that world, I think, is something that I really wanted to experience again, and especially with those characters. The story and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is all told through those memories. So in this game, you just really get to spend a lot of time with that cast of characters. And my experience with the first Hyrule Warriors, I actually really love that game. I think that game is a little bit more of a celebration of the franchise, whereas this is, it's a really kind of carefully told, crafted story set within The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I think there's definitely a different approach there, and I think that's something I really appreciate about this game.
Yeah, I agree with Joe. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Warriors game. I did play the Hyrule Warriors, the original game, all three platform, I guess. And then, I am big fan of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But when I heard about this new one coming out, I was expecting more like the original Hyrule Warriors game, the celebration of the franchise, a lot of different, different characters coming from the different title from the series. But then when I first saw it, I literally screamed when I heard this, a sound effect and music from the Breath of the Wild actually, playing, and the character looked like that. And then I was really excited to see this game. And it was, when I first played Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I was very surprised because it was way different from what I expected in a good way.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And, that was the thing. You mentioned it there, Chico. When I first started playing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, it was not just the visuals. Obviously, the art style was the same from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which, really took me back to that game. But also all the little sound cues, even the little fonts used in the menus when you pause it and look at the map. It really felt like I was back in that world again. And when I first started playing this game, it had been a while since I played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So it felt kind of like this really nice homecoming. And I was more nostalgic than I realized for a game that I'd actually only played a few years ago for the first time. But at the same time, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is, has obviously it's a whole different type of game than Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So it was this nice mix of the familiar and the new. And so far, I mean, I haven't beaten the game like you guys yet, but I'm really enjoying feeling like I'm part of that world again, getting more of that story. And when I first heard that it was, it took place 100 years before the events of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that got me excited because I wanted more time with those characters and more time with that world because I always thought the world had such a rich kind of history to it. I think you're right. It is a very different type of Hyrule Warriors game than the first Hyrule Warriors in that it really does fit in specifically with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, when I first heard this one, it's going to be a warrior style game. I wasn't sure if it's going to be a good fit, but then I thought about it, and then it is before the Great Calamity takes over and take down the whole Hyrule. So there's going to be thousands of monsters coming at you. So then I realized, okay, this is the perfect type of game. It should be like warrior style gameplay. And another thing I was surprised when I played this game is like in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, there are cutscenes where you could see what happened 100 years ago in the memory form in the Secret Slate. But there's only limited number of cutscenes to tell about the stories before the calamity happened. But in this game, you will have lot of opportunity to go through a lot of different type of cutscenes to learn about the story, learn about the characters. It's just because of that, just for that reason, it motivates me to play more and then unlock more story stages so I will be able to see and learn the different character stories.
Yeah, and there's a lot of story in this game. Like it's really a surprising amount of cutscenes. And it's just really cool to see like a lot of those characters come back and like characters like Urbosa who had a little bit of development in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but in this game there's just a lot of content with those characters. Like you get to see them interact with the other champions, which is really cool to see. You get to see that there's like a relationship between all of them, and especially with Zelda, who is kind of like, I would say, is like kind of the cornerstone of the story in this game. And her character itself is like kind of the main driving force between a lot of the characters and within the game. So I think people will really appreciate seeing that like kind of interplay between all the characters and how the story really develops.
Some of the things I was surprised is that in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda was more somebody who's being protected by Link, right? Like I mean, like in the memories you see in the Breath of the Wild cutscenes, she was always just like a behind him, being protected, helpless in a way. But in this one, you will be able to see her fighting, against the monsters, not behind, hiding behind Link or Impa, but she's actually, fighting and then like using the runes and like different actions. It's just nice to see her being a fighter instead of just being protected.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things, the plot points that was developed a little bit in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I think you can see a little bit of it in the demo, is Zelda's like kind of personal struggle with her father needing to really unlock her powers, right? And that's something that's really developed in this game, and I think the plot is really compelling with her personal struggle, and you get to see like really what she's going through and how it's affecting her. So I think people are going to really I think it'll be really interesting to see how people respond to her story and get a little bit more of that development. So excited to see how people react to that.
Yep.
That was another moment when I first started playing this game where it immediately took me back to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, was hearing Zelda speak and just hearing those voices again. And I maybe I never even realized, obviously Zelda, Link, certain characters appear in pretty much all of the games in the series. But these iterations of the characters from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild hold a special place in my heart. So getting more time with them specifically has been a lot of fun so far. And I think, Chiko, you touched on something about the runes. That's another thing I was really impressed with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is, when compared to the previous Hyrule Warriors game, this one changed up combat quite a bit to feel more like it belongs in the same universe as Legend of Zelda Breath in the Wild. So whether it's a combo that sends Link kind of shield surfing into an oncoming line of enemies, or whether it's using runes, the same rooms that you use in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild to make big blocks of ice that can help protect you, that the enemies can smash into when they're actually charging at you or throwing those rune bombs. There's a lot there that really makes it feel like you're playing that other game.
Yeah, this game, even within the Warriors franchise, I think this game sets apart from that because so. Let me go back to the basics of like Hyrule Warrior style games. Usually, you just use X and Y button to do like a normal attack and strong attack, and you can do XXY, XY type like combination attack using those two buttons. Then when the gauge fails, you can do special attack. But in addition to those like a usual warrior style gameplay, they added the 4 different runes. If you played the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you're familiar with, like you said, Chris, stasis, magnesis, cryonis, and remote bomb. They're all available assigned to one of the buttons. And also in addition to that, there's like a rods. You can use fire rods, ice and lightning rods. And all of these buttons, you have to use it while you are fighting against these, hundreds of enemies coming at you. And when some of the powerful enemies actually start showing those symbols of one of the 4 runes, and to effectively fight against them, you have to try to activate the same rune they are showing the symbol for, and you have to do it quickly because that disappears quickly, and if you couldn't do it, you can't attack effectively. So you're always on the toe trying to make sure you do it in a good timing. And then again, in addition to that, we already revealed in the trailer before that Divine Beast is also something you can control. And those things, a lot of different things make this game unique and new, even for those seasoned warrior game players.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things with the kind of the core gameplay of this one. There was the stagger gauge in Hyrule Warriors, which there was kind of that core loop of draining that gauge and then doing a special attack, and you get something similar here. I think it's the loop of it is a little bit more satisfying now that you have the runes. Just being able to like stop kind of a major attack and then throw a bomb at the last second and the time slows down a little bit. That's really, really satisfying. But not just that, but I think the creativity that they put into the rune attacks. Each of the characters has a unique rune attack for all 4 of them, so they're all very different. I think the first time that I saw Impa riding the Cryonis block, which you can do as her, I think Chiko showed it to me, and I just immediately I had to mute my mic and then just scream because I was like, "What? This is just crazy! Like, I can't believe that's something they put in here." So yeah, for me, that's just I think the creativity of the movesets is just it was pretty wild in the first Hyrule Warriors, but in this game, I think people are just gonna be kind of blown away. I mean, each time I get a new character, I immediately just start experimenting with that stuff, and I just am awed by kind of the creativity they put into each one.
Yeah, and on top of that, each character have character specific action too. So, yeah, I mean, runes works differently for each character, and then each character have their own special, like a character unique attack. And yeah, it just makes this game very, very unique, even within the Warrior franchise.
Yeah, I think people.
Yeah, I love how.
Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, I was just gonna say I love how in the middle of combat it has that kind of creativity, like you said, that is what made Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild so special, where you can start chaining together not just kind of quick and strong combos, but I can do like a couple of quick attacks and a strong attack to launch someone into the air as Link, and then I can pop up there too and start paragliding. And then once I'm paragliding, while I'm in the air, I can kind of go into my slow motion shooting the bow at them with my with Link's special attack. So you can start seeing how it all kind of fits together, and before you know it, you're kind of quickly working down an enemy's life gauge with all these great combo attacks you're putting together.
Yeah, and the flurry rush too. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, some of the unique actions are really crazy, like the things that you can do. Mifa in particular has the ability to teleport to like a waterfall that she places, right? And you just get shot up into the air, and you can do a bunch of aerial combos, which is you can get really creative with that. And I think it just makes her gameplay like really fast and frenetic, and then you have all these like aerial parts to it. So I think that's just like one example of kind of the differences between the characters. Impa, I think a lot of people have had a chance to play her in the demo, and she's actually, her mechanics are actually really deep in terms of having to absorb the different runes after you place them on each, or the different symbols after you place them on each enemy. So, you know, I'm really, really curious to see what people do with some of these unique abilities, because it really just makes the combat so much more varied and deep than even other Warriors titles. I think it makes it feel almost more like kind of like a dedicated, like kind of stylish action game a little bit, and just how many tools you have in your arsenal and how, across like all the different characters. It's really a lot more layered, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, and I really like how, you know, one aspect of Warriors games that we haven't talked too much about yet is obviously you're fighting, you know, it's very action focused and you're fighting these hordes of enemies. But at the same time, there's a good amount of strategy because, you know, each kind of level, you know, per se is like this big map. It's a big chunk, you know, of an area that you'd probably recognize from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But different skirmishes will break out on different parts of the map, and you're constantly kind of being directed from one spot to the other. And you can switch between characters, playable characters that might all be, you know, involved in the same battle. And so, you know, the game does a pretty good job for someone like me who's pretty good at the action and not always so great at strategy. It does a pretty good job of guiding you to where you need to go next and putting targets on the map. And there's a lot of just natural story that takes place during the battles where characters are talking to each other. And as the battle ebbs and flows and new kind of stronger characters appear on the battlefield, there's a lot of story that gets communicated that way and not just in the cutscenes. So that's fun and keeps things interesting throughout the battle. And I just liked that you know, switching between Link, who's kind of trying to take over a certain part of the map from the bad guys in one area, then switching to Zelda and using her moveset or whoever else might be on the field, really has a nice ebb and flow to it that I think adds something unique to these types of games.
I agree.
Yeah, one of the things like kind of towards you know, once you get into like the really crazy battles later in the game, you'll just have a ton of enemies, like kind of bigger enemies on screen. And you'll have to really kind of send some of the different characters to different locations, so you'll just be spread all over the map. And it's really crazy. Like you'll be fighting like one you know, like Lionel or something, and then you'll switch to somebody else, and they're just in a completely different fight on the other side of the map. And I think that's one of the things that kind of this format is why it's perfect for this setting. It really does feel like a giant war. Every time you're on one of these stages, it's just like completely crazy. Like you'll have a bunch of stuff happening in the background too that you know, it's a little bit spoilery, so I won't say it, but it just gets really crazy with what's happening. So it definitely feels like just a really, really crazy war is happening, and it really just feels like, you know, the Calamity is actually happening.
And one thing I want to mention is that that takes place at the same location you have explored in the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So if you are, you know, if you're a big fan of that game and you explored every single inch of that world map, Hyrule map, you know, when you are like, let's say like I was in the Gerudo town, and then in a usual like a Warriors game, I don't really expect to go into the houses. You know, I just play and then go to the next outpost to take down or something. But at one point, you know, I went inside one of the bar. If you play the you know, the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you might remember there was one mission you had to go into this, you know, area, like kind of store, and then you have to talk to one of the character, and then you have to find a way to create this drink for her. I don't know if do you guys remember that, but like in this game, you can actually go inside that same store. I mean, like in a restaurant or bar, and you can just kind of explore. Of course, you don't have much time because it's more time critical. You have to get to next location within the time limit most of the cases. So you can't take time, you know, too much to look around. But if you do have time a little bit, I definitely encourage people to look around instead of just getting to the next area to see like, okay, wait, is this like, I'm in the Hyrule field. I run on the horse in the Breath of the Wild, but in this one, I see the stores. I see this, like the building and houses still standing there. And then, the comparison might be a good way to play this game for the fan of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed running around the battlefield, I saw a couple of flowers that looked out of place. And then before I knew it, I was finding Koroks. And I was like, oh, okay, we're doing this again, just like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So yeah, even though you're usually in a hurry, there's always at least a little time to stop and look around if something looks a little suspicious, I think.
Yep.
I did want to mention, I haven't had a chance to try this out myself yet, but the game does have a two-player co-op. So that's pretty cool. Two people can take on the armies of the enemies there.
Yep.
And we touched on this before, but there's a demo that's been available for a little while now. And the good news is that your save data from that demo carries over to the final game if you do decide to buy the final game. So for people that may be fans of The Legend of Zelda, or especially Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but haven't played a Warriors game before, I think this is a great way to kind of get your feet wet, see what it's all about, and then hopefully continue on from there.
Yeah.
And then if you buy the digital version of the game, you get this item called the Lucky Ladle. And then for those that have save data on your system from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you get the Training Sword bonus item. So between the demo and these bonus items, there's a lot of extra goodies there for people to enjoy and explore.
One of the things about the demo, I think it takes you to the part where the map opens up and you get to see it just start to get filled with a bunch of different side quests and different things. It's the same map from The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I remember, Chiko, you had mentioned like the first time that you saw that, you really had a strong reaction, right?
Oh yeah, because I was expecting the similar kind of like a icon showing chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, like the original Hyrule Warriors game, where you can see everything in a linear way. But this one, when I saw the menu screen and then the Hyrule map of Hyrule showed up, and like boom, 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 and like like the same way that the locations opened up in the Breath of the Wild, and the stages opening up, and I'm like, oh! So that was a very exciting moment for me too. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many moments in this game. Even I haven't played it nearly as much as you guys, but so many moments already that really take you back to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I just got to think that anybody who played that game and enjoyed it, there's a lot here for them to check out and get excited about.
And this game has the option to change between the like available different languages. So I'm Japanese, as you can obviously tell. So I play the game itself in English text, but I switch it to Japanese voice over, so I can listen to the characters talk in Japanese, and then you can do it with French and Spanish as well. If you speak or other languages, I totally recommend you guys try out different options too.
Yeah, one more note at that. I think, Chiko, I share with you, but there's definitely been a couple of character descriptions that have just made me laugh out loud. So I think the team definitely got a little bit creative with some of those.
That's great. Well, I look forward to seeing all that for myself. And when I finally beat the game as well, I definitely want to check back with you guys and maybe have a little bit more of a spoiler discussion just among ourselves. I guess that's, I feel like I could talk about this game on and on and on, but we should probably move on to Player's Pulse. And as always, this is where we post a few polls on Twitter for Nintendo fans just for fun. And this time we themed them all around the Legend of Zelda series. And the first question we asked was, which ocarina tune would you rather relax to? And the choices were Zelda's Lullaby, Epona's Song, Sun's Song, or the Song of Time. Chiko, do you have any personal favorites there, or can you guess what the fans chose the most?
I don't know about the fans, but my favorite is definitely Zelda's Lullaby.
Yeah, I think it's the
Good
same
choice.
for me.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are right in lockstep with the fans. Zelda's Lullaby was the top vote getter at 46%.
Oh, okay.
The Song of Time came in second, followed by Epona's Song and then Sun's Song. But it's amazing how catchy those ocarina tunes are. They'll just pop into my head at weird times.
Yeah.
So all of them, I think, are pretty memorable. The next question was, which style do you prefer in Legend of Zelda games? 2D, which is more of the top-down view that you got with the older games and with some of the games on handheld systems, or 3D, which is what you get more commonly today with games like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So, Joe, which is your favorite?
Oh,
kind of
man.
the top-down 2D or the 3D? And I know it's
Yeah.
tough. You can't pick both, though. I'm forcing you to only pick one.
This is unfair. This is a hard question. Oh man. I think I'll have to go with 3D. Man, now you're making me doubt. I love A Link to the Past, and even last year, Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening.
That's a great game.
Yeah, but I mean, the 3D Zelda games just hold a special place in my heart. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. There's just that game is definitely special. I think everybody knows it. I mean, there's nothing more I need to say about it. But Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild obviously did a lot to just kind of change up open world games, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I think 3D Zelda games have just gone in so many different directions, have evolved in so many different ways. I think for me, that's where I have to go with.
Mm-hmm. Now, Chiko, based on the many, I'm guessing hundreds of hours you've played Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'll be surprised if you don't choose 3D.
Well, I mean, like, same with Joe. I mean, it's a really tough call, and then you can't choose. It's like totally two different things.
I know.
Yeah, but still, for me, my first Zelda game I ever played was The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. So, I mean, that's still, holds a special space in my heart. And then I do like the 2D top-down version of the Zelda games, Link to the Past, Between the Worlds, and I even like Triforce Heroes. I mean, I have a lot of good memories about those games. So yeah, I mean, I have to, especially because Joe chose 3D. I have to go with the 2D version.
I like that. I like that. Both. I usually, the first games I played, I'm old enough to have played all the original NES versions of these games. So I usually go with kind of the more retro types of games. But, I think I've decided that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is my favorite game in the series. So because of that, I'm going to go with 3D. And 3D is what the fans chose with 81%.
Wow. Overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, there have been a lot more 3D games in the series, I think, over the past, 10, 20 years. So, maybe there's fewer of us these days that can appreciate the earlier days of The Legend of Zelda.
I think the key takeaway that we have here is that, we're talking about a Hyrule Warriors game today, right? So obviously this franchise has just gone in so many directions. It's so varied. You never know what the next entry is going to be. So, I mean, I think it's just a testament to the variety in the series. There's just so many different types of games in it.
Absolutely. All right, and the final poll question we asked is, which is more satisfying to defeat enemies with, the sword or the bow? Chiko, what would be your choice there?
Why there's only two choices here? Why there's no fire? Or even like spear, or, I don't know. I guess sword to me, because you have the physical, I don't know. Physical attack is better? I don't know. Joe?
That's one for sword, Joe.
Well, I think, after, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I have to go with the bow. There's like few things more satisfying than hitting that like specific spot that just gets that ping sound. And then also you have like the ancient arrows too, right? Like those are really, really awesome. So
very helpful.
I'm sure I'm wrong.
Yeah, I would. I would go with bow too, just because I do like that. When you let the satisfaction of letting that arrow loose and not knowing if you're going to hit it, and then when you do hit it, and especially if you get that ding from a perfect shot, it's so satisfying. But people who would pick bow, like myself, are in the minority. The fans chose sword at 70%.
I knew it.
So
interesting.
Yeah, it is the more common way to dispose of the bad guys, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I said fire, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, if you don't have fire, then bow or sword will do. All right, well, now we're going to continue talking about Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild in our Nintendo Power Game Club segment. This is where we always talk about a game that we all chose to play beforehand, kind of like a book club. And, I want to start this discussion with a couple of comments that fans shared on Twitter about the game. This one came from Unseasoned Jeff, who said, easily my favorite part of the game is that if you see something cool in the distance, you can actually go there and check it out. Nothing is just for show or just in the background. Everything is a genuine part of the world. Every inch can be explored. And then similarly, Champion S said, no matter what kind of gamer you are, the game has something to offer you. Whether you're a strategist, a wanderer, a hero, or even a philanthropist, there is a place for you in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The experience never gets old because you never have the same playthrough twice. And I thought something that both of these comments touched on is the open air nature of the game, the fact that there's so many different approaches you can take while playing. So, Chiko, I want to ask, what was your first impression the first time you stepped out into that big open world?
At the very first moment, I wasn't quite sure what to do because just like there's so many options. You can go either any direction, and then I'm so used to like, okay, this is the first mission. I have to go to this shrine, temple, to get this item. But now in this one, it's like I don't what am I supposed to do? I mean, like I'm just out of this cave, and like which direction am I supposed to go? So it was a little bit of like a feeling of lost. But quickly, I realized that wow, there's so much freedom, and I felt so, yeah, free. I mean, I could do whatever I want to do. So I was really excited. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was like this wonderful feeling of being lost because it felt like I was on the playground, and it
Yeah.
was just, if I wanted to go pick up that stick and swing it around at things, I could do that.
Which
If I
I
wanted to
did.
go for a quick swim, yeah, and it really just felt like just the, yeah, normally you're kind of pointed in a more clear direction, and you are given some direction on where you can go at the beginning of this game, but along the way it just seems like there's so many opportunities to just play it however you want. So I think you pretty quickly adjust to that and appreciate that. Joe, what did you think about that? What did that aspect of the game mean? Because there's always big overworlds to explore in Legend of Zelda games, but this one, it really felt like there were new rules for the first time in a long time for the series. You weren't quite sure what to expect or what the game expected of you.
Yeah, I think my reaction, and even coming to the game, I think at the time I had been pretty burnt out on open world games. I had played a lot of them and was kind of wondering, if an open world could capture me like that again. And I think so I was a little skeptical but hopeful when I went in. And playing it for the first time, it definitely exceeded my expectations. Just that feeling of being lost, but then just the world being so interconnected. I think it's a lot of people talk about how the world is so huge and it's not populated with a ton of, like, there's not a city on every block, right? But it makes it feel special when you discover things. You discover things like that are just hidden in the distance, or it's in a spot that you didn't even notice. And I think that's something to me that is really special. I think it's kind of like a bold move by a developer, right? To put something there that somebody might not even see. I think a lot of the times in open world games, the intention is that whoever's playing it, you want to see all the content, right? And I think in this game, I thought it was just a really special experience to just discover things. Even when you're playing it hundreds of hours in, you're just finding new things. So for me, that was the key difference that made it a really special game for me. And it continues to be something that's just a part of my active rotation.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I sat down many years ago and I tried to think, if I were to try to distill Super Mario Brothers and the Legend of Zelda series, which are my two favorite series by far, if I were to try to distill them down into just one word each that to me describes what the core of that experience is about, for me, Super Mario was joy. The joy you get from kind of all of the actions that you perform and the exuberance of Mario. And for The Legend of Zelda, it was wonder. And, I think the first time you play a Legend of Zelda game, and for me, it was the very first one on the NES, when you don't quite yet know what all the rules are, and you're discovering so much about the game and what you can do and what the world is, there is that constant sense of surprise and wonder that is just so compelling. And obviously, the more games you play in a series, and the more you start to be able to spot, even though a lot of the Legend of Zelda games have very different features, you start to be able to more and more quickly spot kind of okay, I know what I'm doing here. I've seen puzzles kind of like this before. I kind of know where I'm at. So for someone like me that had played the series for so long, it was such a breath of fresh air, no pun intended, to play Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, and suddenly not know necessarily what's even possible anymore. And it took me back to those days as a kid when I would go to school and I would talk to my friends about what we'd experienced in the original NES game, and we would trade stories, and there was always one kid who would kind of make stuff up, but you didn't know if he was making it up, because as far as what he was saying was just as legitimate as anyone else. And so I really liked, especially in the office here at Nintendo of America, we would go in after having played Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild the night before, and we would be trading our stories. And because there were so many systems in the game that allowed you to kind of create your own story, things would happen to each of us that were unique. And maybe we would go home and try to replicate those things in our own games. And I just felt like that was something that took me back to the very beginning of the series, and I had that full sense of wonder all over again. All right, now I want to move on to another comment from Drift, who said, "I love the sense that the world was alive and had been thoroughly lived in before the Calamity. It made it melancholy and intriguing to explore, and bittersweet to see how people were carrying on and making do 100 years later. Outstanding world building." So we talked about just now the experience of going through this world, but this world also came alive because of the history and the storytelling. And sometimes it's very obvious storytelling, and it's sometimes things that are implied, when you visit certain areas and you see kind of what remains from that battle 100 years ago. So, what were some of the things, or maybe even favorite places that stood out to you about the world?
That's like what was that? I forgot the name of the ranch, but I stumbled across on the Hyrule field. There's like a totally destroyed ranch, and I'm like, this looks kind of familiar with other game in the series, and I kind of explored
Hmm.
there, and then I felt like, oh, it's totally destroyed. There's nobody. It's like everything is destroyed, and I'm sorry to going back to the Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but I did have one of the side quests. I actually happened to go to the exactly same location, and seeing that place actually still standing with all the houses and then the towers still standing there as and it kind of made me think of the Breath of the Wild. It's like, wow, in 100 years, the Great Calamity, like all these things happen in between these two games, and like it did make me very nostalgic. And then
Hmm.
it made me actually go back to play the Breath of the Wild so I can go see how it looked. It's been a while since I played the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, so it made me go back and then go to that area. So that's one place I kind of remember right now. But yeah, there's a lot of other
Hmm.
places like Great Plateau and I have Hyrule Castle. But yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely kind of that like quiet world building. Like definitely the world is it's very peaceful despite what has
Hmm.
happened, and you have Calamity Ganon just all over the castle and a ton of enemies everywhere. But I think that's something that I really appreciate about the game. Like you go into Hateno Village and you just get to see everybody just living their lives, and um, you get to meet characters like Pura, who has obviously had a lot happen to her, and you get to see her in Hyrule Warriors also. But then just like kind of the things that are implied but not specifically told to you. So things like you know when you start building a house in Hateno Village, or
Mm.
you move into a house, right, and you start to get a little bit of backstory, and start to think, well, is this a place where Link might have lived before? It's very like melancholy, right? Like he has been gone for 100 years. He doesn't remember anything. He has no idea where he
Yeah.
is. All these people remember him and they love him, but a lot of them are also gone. Like all these people that he knew are gone. So it's kind of like life goes on. He's there, and you get to get all out of this backstory, and I just really appreciate that kind of just like simple world building that doesn't really like kind of get in your way and doesn't beat you over the head with it, but it's kind of implied.
And the last comment I want to share is from Becca, who said, "The first time I defeated a guardian with a shield was one of the most satisfying moments in gaming for me. I loved proving how much I had improved from the start when I was running from almost everything." So, I thought this was something that definitely came through to me when I played the game as well, as that feeling of growth. Chico, was there anything that surprised you about yourself as you got better at the game? Any maybe accomplishments where you really thought, wow, I can't believe I was able to do that?
Well, I mean, like, I really was bad at it at the very beginning for every single stuff. So, I think I got better at everything. But, yeah, Shield Reflect was something that I had to practice a little bit at the beginning, like, whenever the guardian starts the sound, I'm like, nope, this is the time I have to get away. But then, like, slowly, I'm like, okay, I can do this. And then, like, I have enough, like, health and then the hearts. And, like, I'm just going to try this one time. I'm not going to die. And then, like, I did it. And then I'm being able to, continuously do it every single time. So, yeah, I maybe feel like, okay, I'm now ready for this adventure. So, yeah, Shield to Reflect was definitely something makes me feel like I grown. I'm ready for this.
Yeah, even just getting through all the shrines and just building that stamina meter and your number of hearts. A lot of those things just make it a lot easier to traverse the world. It just like opens up different opportunities for you. And yeah, I think the game does such a good job of just kind of easing you into a lot of that, especially with the way like weapons are given to you. And I know, there's a lot of different opinions on weapon durability, which is a key component of the game. For me personally, I really love that mechanic because it encourages you to experiment, and you really get that feeling that that whatever you're picking up actually matters. If it's a new weapon, that's something that you're actually going to use. You're not just going to stick to one weapon for the entire game and just coast your way through it. Everything that you grab has meaning to it. And this, I've tried to replay the game, pretty constantly whenever I have time, which is fool's errand because we have so many games that we actually need to play. I've been playing on master mode and just getting absolutely destroyed. So that's been an interesting experience, but it does make me appreciate the mechanics a lot more because it is that early game on master mode is just so dire, like you can die in one hit. So it is really tough playing in that mode, but it also does just again like reiterate how strong those kind of core mechanics and that feeling of growth is.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, like you guys have said, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of feel that your character and your own play and your own skill have grown. But I would agree with Becca. For me, it was I still didn't get the shield timing down so that I could consistently defeat a guardian that way, but I did like using ancient arrows on them, which takes them out in one shot. And that felt really good after there were so many situations throughout the game where I would end up getting myself stuck behind like around a corner where there was a guardian who was out there who for some reason couldn't quite get to me. But if I stuck my head out, he was going to take me out and I would just try to wait him out. I probably should have just let him get me and then start over. But I was like for 15 minutes, just like this cat and mouse game of trying to get around this guardian. So when you could finally like take them out with authority, that felt so good.
Yeah,
I think I've definitely done the thing that I'm sure a lot of players have done this, but I just save up those ancient arrows for like a rainy day that never happens because I'm too afraid to waste them. So I just hoard them forever.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well now we're going to move on to Warp Zone. This is the quiz we have every episode where we guess games that came out 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, this time during the month of November. Chiko, it sounds like you're raring to go.
I'm so bad with this kind of thing, so I'm just gonna let
I'm
Joe
hyped, let's
answer
go.
everything.
No, I don't know. I'm gonna have trouble, so we'll see.
I have faith. All right, here we go. The first one is 10 years ago. This is in November of 2010. And the clues are, a popular pair of Nintendo characters made their long-awaited return on Wii to take on the terrible Tiki Tong and his Tiki Tak tribe through acrobatic platforming stages and minecart rides that could drive players bananas. Any guesses?
Oh,
That's an easy one. Go, Chico.
Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze? No, wait.
Close.
Donkey Kong.
You're one game too far ahead.
See, I have that memory. Joe, go. Joe.
Donkey Kong Country Returns.
Yeah,
That's it. Yep.
Oh,
You're
sorry.
close. You're close.
Donkey Kong Country Returns. Also that month was Golden Sun Dark Dawn on Nintendo DS and Sonic Colors for Wii and Nintendo DS. So pretty good month back in November of 2010.
Yeah.
And then 20 years ago now, November of 2000,
Jeez.
Nintendo published a virtual pet kind of game for Nintendo 64 where the player partnered with a cute critter to complete daily activities and earn Pika points. This game had you talking to the TV as one of just 2 titles to ever use the voice recognition unit accessory. Any guesses?
It's too easy. Wait, Chico, do you know it?
No, go ahead.
He gave a big hint.
What did you say?
I said he gave a big hint, but it is Hey You Pikachu.
That's it. Yep. Hey You Pikachu. Another big month. That one also had Banjo-Tooie for N64 and WWF No Mercy for N64, which
No
was a
Mercy.
great game.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
beloved.
And in case anyone's wondering, I said there were 2 games that used the VRU accessory. The other one was Densha de Go 64, which was a Japan-only release. All right, the final one, which is 30 years ago in November of 1990, going way back now, Capcom brought a popular NES platformer to Game Boy that starred a stingy millionaire who had the support of characters like Huey, Dewey, and Louie, while using his trusty pogo jump in a hunt for 5 lost treasures that took him from the Amazon to the moon. Any guesses?
Ooh,
This game was based on a popular cartoon featuring a money-loving duck.
Is this what's his name? Sorry, I'm not great with these characters, but Darkwing? No, wait, no.
You're in the right universe.
Darkwing Duck.
Close. You're in the right universe. I'll just go ahead and reveal it. It's DuckTales.
I said that. I should have been.
Should
Yeah.
know that.
Actually, the NES version is the one people are most familiar with. Also, Mega Man 3 came out for NES that month.
That would have been
So
easier.
pretty good. 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3.
I
Would've
kind of
gotten-
but I do
whispered
have-
it, but should have been more confident about it. Okay, never mind.
I do have one more bonus question. This is an audio question, so I'm going to play a sound, and we'll see if you guys can guess what it is. So I'll play it a couple times, so if you know it right off the bat, just hold on to it for a second. And here it is again. Any guesses on what this sound is?
That is the Guardian charging sound
Oh!
before it hits you with the laser.
That's right.
Jeez!
Chica, you even mentioned it earlier.
I was thinking about a game, different game, and I didn't think about sound effects. So I'm like, oh, I should have got it. Oh, Bill's gonna kill me.
That's okay. This is a team game, so between you both, you got 3 out of 4. Nice job.
I'm ashamed.
All right, so now before we go, we're gonna move to game forecast. This is where we take a quick look at some of the Nintendo Switch games that either just released or are coming soon. So on November 3rd, we had Bakugan Champions of Vestoria from WayForward and Warner Brothers Interactive. On November 9th, we had Fuser from NCSoft and Harmonix Music Systems. On November 10th, we had Sakuna of Rice and Ruin from Marvelous Exceed and Edelweiss. And on November 10th, we had Just Dance 2021 from Ubisoft. On November 13th, we've got Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory from Square Enix and Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered from Electronic Arts. On November 17th, we had Sniper Elite 4 from Rebellion. And then today, November 20th, we have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity from Nintendo. And then on December 1st, we'll have Empire of Sin from Paradox Interactive and Romero Games. On December 3rd, there's Immortals Phoenix Rising from Ubisoft. On December 4th, we have Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light from Nintendo, Fitness Boxing 2 Rhythm and Exercise from Nintendo, and John Wick Hex from Gambitious. And then on December 8th, we have Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 from Sega. So Chico and Joe, is there anything here that you're especially looking forward to?
I mean, like there's multiple, some like I want to play Sakuna and Kingdom Hearts too, but I'm definitely looking forward to the Immortal Phoenix Rising. That look like I like the like a Greek mythology stuff, so that world seems like a very interesting thing to play.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to explore that world. I was gonna say, Chico, these are a lot of titles that we have seen in various Nintendo Directs that we've worked on in the past. So
Yeah.
it was like running down the past list for the past couple
Lane,
Directs.
yeah.
Yeah. Sakuna is another one for me. I remember. I think some people might remember we had that in Treehouse Live. I think it was last year. Man, that's a year now. And just seeing that game for the first time, I didn't know what it was, and I was pretty impressed by it. Being, kind of an Animal Crossing fan, but also a big action fan. I think that's kind of hitting all those boxes. So, and also, working with the dev team last year at Treehouse Live, those guys were really great. So, just excited to play that one. I actually bought it already, but Hyrule Warriors has been taking up my time. So.
Yeah, it can be tough finding time for all these games. For me, the one that jumps out, other than, a bunch do, but I'll just mention Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light, because I've become a big fan of the Fire Emblem series over the years. But obviously, this was the first game in the series, came out for the Famicom in 1990 in Japan, but this will be the first time that it's been officially localized into English. And, this is the game that had the first appearance of Marth. And they've added all these new features. You can rewind to previous turns. You can fast forward through player and enemy actions or create and load bookmarks. So it sounds like not only is it a chance to go back and finally experience that first chapter in the franchise, but also for people like me who love the series but maybe aren't the best at these kinds of games, there's a few new features here that will help me along a little bit. So really looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
I've
did
actually
you see
never
the
played
special
it.
edition? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say that I've actually never played this game before, and I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan, but obviously I don't speak Japanese, so there hasn't been many ways for me to do that. So, my first Fire Emblem was on the Game Boy Advance, so I'm really curious to see, just being introduced to characters like Marth again and getting that story. I think my only exposure to that story is through Super Smash Bros. Trophies. So,
Yep.
I'm curious to get that story.
Just like in the trailer. Yeah, just like in that trailer that we put out for the game. That was a great way to introduce that game.
Trailer.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Chiko and Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
That's it for this episode of Nintendo Power Podcast. If you have any comments or questions you'd like us to consider answering on the show, you can email us at nintendopowerpodcast@noa.nintendo.com. Also, we always appreciate it if you can leave us a review, and be sure to subscribe so you get new episodes as soon as they're ready. Thanks for listening, and keep playing with power.